Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever just stopped and really thought, how would we actually talk to an alien?
Hmm.
Not just, waving or sending a picture, but actually exchanging complex ideas.
It feels like pure science fiction, doesn't it?
Totally. But it's a question that kicked off this really interesting deep dive looking at material you shared, mainly from a source called Echoes of Understanding.
Right.
And this source, it takes that simple question, talking to aliens, and uses it to explore some, well, pretty profound stuff.
Yeah, it connects a lot of dots.
It really
And
does. Like our current AI tech, how animals and even plants communicate here on Earth and what that might mean for, potential first contact.
and it weaves in that philosophical idea, too.
Exactly. Education is agency. We'll get to that.
Okay.
So the mission today is basically to walk you through this source, pull out the key insights, the surprising bits, and explore what it suggests about, well, everything. Our place in the universe.
Sounds good. Let's jump in. So that first question, talking to aliens. The source immediately highlights the main challenge.
Which is,
The sheer, almost unbelievable unlikelihood that any alien language would be anything like human language, let alone English, obviously.
different evolution, different planet.
Exactly. Think about biology. It could be completely different. Their senses,
Mm.
how they perceive reality. Maybe it's through light patterns or complex chemical signals, pheromones.
Electromagnetic fields. Things we don't even have senses for.
Precisely. Or maybe even weirder stuff like forms of consciousness or connection that, bend our current physics. Their whole reality, their way of sharing information could be fundamentally alien.
So the great silence might just be us not knowing how to listen.
That's one interpretation the source touches on, yeah. Maybe the conversation's happening, but we don't recognize it.
Okay, so if we're facing something potentially that different, how do we even start? What tools do we have for patterns that aren't human language?
Well, this is where the source brings in AI, artificial intelligence. It suggests AI is maybe our best shot right now at deciphering complex, non-human patterns.
A kind of universal translator, but much broader.
You could think of it that way, yeah. And the source uses analogies from right here on Earth to make the point.
Like the whispers from the past part, deciphering old languages.
Exactly. Think about ancient scripts that stumped scholars for ages. The source describes AI sifting through massive amounts of text data, known languages, symbol frequencies.
Looking for underlying structures, grammatical rules.
Right. Finding connections humans missed. It's basically proving AI can find meaning in symbolic systems that seem totally opaque to us at first.
Okay, that makes sense for human stuff. But aliens.
Well, the source goes further. Look at echoes in the wild using AI for animal communication.
Like dolphins and whales.
Dolphins with their clicks and whistles, whales and their incredibly complex songs, yeah, or even chimps with their calls and gestures. AI is great at analyzing huge data sets of these sounds and behaviors.
And finding patterns.
Finding patterns, noticing when certain sounds happen, the context spotting tiny variations that might signal specific meanings or intentions. It's not saying animals have language like ours,
No, sure.
but they definitely have sophisticated ways of exchanging information. AI helps us start to see the structure in that.
Okay, that's fascinating. But the source had an even wilder example, right? The trees.
Ah, yes, the silent network. That one is pretty mind-bending. Researchers apparently detected these really subtle electrical signal shifts in older trees
When was this?
hours before a solar eclipse. The data suggests the trees were somehow sensing this big environmental change coming,
And warning the younger ones.
possibly communicating it, through that underground fungal network, the mycorrhizal network in the soil.
Wow. Okay, that's not language as we think of it at all.
Not even close. But it is information exchange, isn't it? A biological network signaling change. And AI is key because that kind of signal is buried in so much biological noise. AI can pull out those faint patterns that we'd completely miss.
So let's piece this together. We're using AI to decode ancient human writing, to understand patterns in animal calls,
Right.
and even maybe detecting signals between plants. We're building this general purpose pattern decoder now.
And that leads directly to the source's core argument about what it calls the developmental asymmetry.
Okay, what's the asymmetry?
It's that we're developing these powerful AI tools for understanding all sorts of communication, human, animal, even plant signals, way before we figured out practical interstellar travel.
Right, getting to other stars is still firmly science fiction for us. Propulsion, life support for centuries, navigation.
Exactly. The challenges are immense, orders of magnitude beyond what we can do now. So the source argues any civilization that has cracked interstellar travel.
Must be incredibly advanced scientifically and technologically.
Hugely advanced, and they would almost certainly have encountered and solved the problem of universal communication long, long before they launched their first starship.
Ah, I see. It wouldn't be the final hurdle, it'd be an early one.
Likely a foundational one. The ability to understand or translate unknown signals, unknown systems of information. That seems like a prerequisite for exploring the galaxy, doesn't it?
Yeah, you need it.
Their version of a prime directive, if they had one, would probably involve some seriously sophisticated communication protocols built on an ability to decipher almost anything.
Okay, this shifts the perspective quite a bit. It leads into that philosophical part you mentioned earlier, education as agency.
It does. The source connects this whole line of thinking AI, aliens, communication to a broader human theme, our deep-seated drive to understand and express.
Right. It mentioned that scriptural reference from Revelations about every creature participating in expression.
Yes, Revelations 5, verse 13. And the source is careful to frame it correctly.
So
It's not saying it's literal proof of, singing animals or aliens. It's using it as a 2,000-year-old example of humans imagining a connected universe where everything, in some way, expresses something. It shows how ancient thought, like science, grapples with these big questions of understanding and connection.
gotcha. So what is education as agency, according to this source?
It's presented as something deeper than just, say, memorizing facts for a test or getting a diploma. It's about grounding your understanding in first principles.
Like the fundamentals.
Exactly, the fundamentals of how reality works. Physics, energy, signals, how things travel. Chemistry, the basis of life. Interaction. Computer science, information itself. Algorithms, how systems process data. And crucially, systems thinking.
Seeing how the parts connect.
Yes, how complex systems work, how components influence each other, whether it's an ecosystem, a society, or, a communication network.
And the source argues this kind of education gives you, the listener, actual agency, real capability.
That's the idea. It empowers you in several ways. First, the agency to critically evaluate information.
How does that work?
If you understand the basics, how physics works, how data can be analyzed, you have a better framework to judge claims. Is this plausible science? Is it interesting speculation? Is it just fiction? Or is it maybe misinformation designed to provoke fear? You can assess things more clearly.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
The agency to synthesize knowledge, to connect the dots. You can see how AI development relates to studying dolphin calls, how that relates to forest ecology, how that relates to questions about astrophysics, or even ancient philosophy. You build a richer, more interconnected understanding of the world.
Instead of just isolated facts.
Right. It also gives you the agency to engage with uncertainty. When you encounter something truly unknown, like the possibility of alien life, you don't just have to react with fear or immediate dismissal.
You have tools.
You have tools for reasoned thinking, for asking good questions, for approaching mystery with curiosity and logic, not just gut reaction.
And the last one.
The agency to participate in shaping the future, understanding the implications of powerful tech like AI, or the deep questions raised by science, lets you be part of the conversation about where we're going as a society. You're not just swept along by change, you can contribute thoughtfully.
And the source suggests that even asking these kinds of questions, like the ones that started this whole dive,
that itself is exercising this agency. Curiosity combined with a desire to understand based on evidence and reason.
Okay, so wrapping up this look at Echoes of Understanding, the big takeaway isn't necessarily how we'll talk to aliens.
No, because while contact is still speculative, the journey we're on suggests something else. Our own progress, especially with AI decoding non-human communication right here.
Implies any spacefaring civilization would likely have cracked the translation problem ages ago.
Probably. The truly hard part of contact might be much deeper. Understanding alien motivations, their context, their philosophy, their whole way of being that could be the real challenge, far beyond just swapping data.
So the source kind of reframes our own situation.
Yeah, it suggests humanity's grand project is a kind of ongoing translation. We translate the universe through science, we translate our deepest questions through art and philosophy, we translate knowledge to the next generation through education.
The echoes of understanding are maybe already here.
That's the implication, all around us, waiting for us to develop the tools and maybe the mindset to hear them.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Building on this source material, If communication, if understanding can happen in ways as subtle as, say, electrical signals between trees in a forest.
Or patterns in animal sounds we're only just starting to grasp with AI.
What other forms of understanding, what other kinds of knowing or connection might be happening all around us right now?
Things we just don't have the framework or maybe the sensitivity to perceive yet.
Exactly. Something to think about. And maybe reflect on your own education as agency when you encounter the next piece of complex, challenging information out there.